Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I'm James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40's Sean Cunningham. Mr. Cunningham, how are you?
Well, I'm okay. It's sure pissing rain outside, so you know how that makes me feel. But I know we need it. I just don't like it, and I guess it's going to ruin my day. But other than that, I'm toasty and warm inside the palatial Cunningham estate. How about you guys?
Well, Sean's being a little bitch, but how is Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm feeling pretty Sean Cunningham today. I'm not a fan of this rain. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not great. That's for sure. I'm looking outside. I can see the lake is moving, like it's windy and nasty, and the water is all over the place. And we were just talking before we came on. My son is actually going out to try to collect donations around the lake for his soccer team. And he's going to be walking in this weather, which is okay because this is the weather that high school soccer plays in, which is not great. Yeah, it's not great at all. I mean, as parents sitting in the stands when it's like, 37 degrees at game time, it's just not fun. So.
See, and this is the thing that always confuses me. People love the rain. Like, do you? It makes, like, I know we need it. Like, what about that? I mean, I know you can't see it, but what about that do you love? Again, if you're inside and you're warm and you're looking at it and going, hey, water's falling from the sky, that's okay. But it makes people drive stupider. Is stupider a word? Because I'm pretty stupid.
It might be. More stupid?
More stupidity. That's definitely not a word. It's so irritating. It's cold. No one wants to. I mean, come on.
I'm.
When someone says, "I love the rain," I just want to smack them in the face. Why? Why do you love the rain?
Well, we gotta take.
I know we need it. Again, we need it.
We got to take the dogs out like 3 times a day, and they are not happy about the rain, especially the corgi, the little baby. She has no idea what is happening, but she does not like it. And then she goes and stands in puddles, but because her legs are only this long, she sinks all the way up to her belly in the puddle. And yeah, it's a never-ending battle. Like, no one wants to go outside. We're all like, this is miserable. All right, well, we might as well talk about the Sacramento Kings and not the weather. Because unlike the sky here in Sacramento, the sky is not falling on the road with the Sacramento Kings. But let's take care of business first. If you're watching on YouTube, if you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe there. If you're not a subscriber to the Kings Beat, jump on board with the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com and become a premium subscriber to get the invite to our upcoming Off the Record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour, which is set for Thursday. We have a guest. We're not announcing that guest until we've solidified said guest all the way and lock and key. But we're going to do it one way or the other. If we have to make a late switch and figure out a different guest, maybe we can do that. But we'll figure something out. So Thursday, December 15th from 5:30 to 7:30, we'll do Off the Record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour part 10.
No title?
I don't have a name for it.
This is us.
Maybe Happy Holidays. I don't know. Maybe
it's not long enough.
Yeah, it's not long enough.
That's
maybe it could be something like Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, there we go.
Die Hard, Brennan, is a movie of Bruce Willis that
that bald guy.
Plaza.
Yeah.
What?
Nagasaki Towers?
What?
The
Nakatomi, sir.
Nakatomi. Yeah. With the great Alan Rickman.
R.I.P.
Yeah, the late great Alan Rickman.
And Bonnie Bedelia. I can name everybody in that movie, buddy.
Actually, the one dude just died like this week from it. I can't remember what his name is, but he was in Walker, Texas Ranger.
Chuck Norris?
No. Chuck Norris.
He's not a diehard.
Yeah, he'll never die. No. The black guy that is a safecracker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know his name though.
Yeah, he passed away this week.
I didn't know he was in Walker, Texas. I didn't know he was in anything other than Die Hard. So that's good knowledge.
Yeah. He was actually in a bunch of stuff. I was surprised when like you were like, hey, look, I didn't know he was in that and that. Yeah, he's one of those character actors that show up in everything. Anyway, yeah, all
Good
right.
Die Hard knowledge.
So good Die Hard knowledge. Brendan, have you watched Die Hard?
I have not.
Oh, Jesus.
Every time these movie rants happen, I just think of Deuce Mason now because he's the only
Why?
one in my corner that defends me when these conversations.
That's because
go
he
on.
doesn't watch any movies.
Exactly. It's my guy. It's perfect.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. Don't be like Deuce. Also,
Don't be
Ellis
like Deuce.
probably the best character in that whole movie.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yep.
I can get him for you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Have you ever tried the trick where you squish your toes in the carpet to
Oh
stop
yeah.
getting jet lag?
I don't know about jet lag. It's just fun.
Brendan has no idea what we're talking about.
Nope.
Not at all.
Spectacular. Yeah, and you know the bad guy, the long blonde-haired guy, he's like a world-class ballerina. That's where.
Well, is that what we call it?
Well, yeah. I don't know. What is a male ballerina?
I don't know. Ballet dancer. I don't know. Professional in. I feel like ballerina
I guess
is so
ballerina
backhanded.
is like I would assume is the female version, but
like you walk up to him and you're just
we've
like,
gone
"Hey,
off the rails." We need to Google this now.
yeah." Like if you walked up to him, this is my friend. He's a world class ballerina. I feel like he's gonna punch you in the face.
What is a
Is it Brezhnikov? What's his name?
male ballerina called?
Live googling.
A ballet dancer is referred to as a danseur.
Oh, danseur. See, how dare you
Okay. But
minimize
that's in
him to a
French.
ballerina?
In Italian, a ballerina is a female. Like my bad. Botched that.
Apologies.
Apologies to the blonde-haired guy in Die Hard. Anyway, we once again have wasted your time here on the
Brendan,
Geek Beat podcast.
because of that, you are now required to watch that movie, and your due date would be, I think, just after the happy hour, maybe by Thursday.
Yeah,
Can you
because
watch it by Thursday?
You have to watch it before
It's a Christmas
before
movie.
Christmas because it is, a Christmas movie.
I haven't seen it, but I'm pretty confident it's not a Christmas movie.
What do you mean?
Isn't it just set during Christmas, but there's no real Christmas actions going on?
Well, you see Christmas represented in the movie, yeah?
That makes it a Christmas movie? That's
Yeah.
I fully
Sure.
buy in that Die Hard is one of the great Christmas movies of all time.
I agree.
Wait, it's right up there with Elf, Christmas Story, Christmas Vacation. Have you seen any of these?
I've seen Elf and Christmas Story.
Have you seen Christmas Vacation?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's one of the great films of all time. There's so many one-liners from that. The shitter's full.
Yeah,
There's
of course.
That really sells it.
You don't mind me
if you're
asking,
Brendan
Clark?
hearing
Great
these things,
Christmas
and
movie.
You
yeah,
don't mind me asking, Clark, how much his chair set you back?
can't see the line, can you, Russ?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All
I
right.
can already see the YouTube comments.
So great.
You can't
They won't
see
be
the
kind.
line, can you, Russ? Oh, brilliant. What? That's have a Merry Christmas. She goes, oh, what a coincidence. That's my name. No
Oh
shit.
shit.
All right, let's get into this. The Sacramento Kings. Let's just kick it to Brendan and have him save us here.
Yeah.
Brendan, the Sacramento Kings just knocked off the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have now swept the season series with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Was there any major takeaways that you saw from that game? Because it sort of seemed like the Kings are quietly shifting and becoming a defensive-minded team while we're watching them progress throughout this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's just that. I think the offense is obviously still there, but they just played the #1 ranked defense in Cleveland and still did okay, or at least enough on the offensive end. But the standout has to be that 20-0 run to close the game. They just totally took over. They were really aggressive without fouling, physical without fouling, caused a lot of turnovers. It stood out to me, like after that Chicago game, I know Mike Brown came out and said that he wasn't really sure if the Kings had won an ugly game. And I think this is probably the best example of that. Like they were just able to grind out a game and win an ugly one by forcing turnovers, making shots when they need to. Darius Garland had a big second quarter. Karis LeVert had a big third. They limited guys in the fourth. And it was great to see Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, both playing phenomenally. We're continuing to see Sabonis be a better and better defender. I feel like not dealing with the same sort of foul trouble that he was at the beginning of the year. So the standout has to be how much they were able to get it done on defense. And we've heard guys say we feel like we can get a stop when we need to. And apparently they can do it for the last 5 minutes of a game if they need to.
Yeah, I think that I had it at a 19-0 run. It could have been a 20-0, but I had it at 95-87,
Right.
and they never scored again. So yeah, I had it, but absolutely impressive. 10 consecutive stops, defensive stops. Whether it was a stop or whatever happened, they missed a shot. Yeah, Sean, what were your takeaways? Because I know it's one of those games where, without De'Aaron Fox, without Terrence Davis, some of the guys looked a little beat up, draggled, but the Kings were able to grit one out.
Yeah, well, I mean, some might call this an overreaction on my part on a Saturday morning, but I truly think it's going to be one of the most remarkable things they accomplished all season. I think when they look back, no matter what the success of the season, when they look back and say, remember that game when we got 10 consecutive stops, went on a 19-0 run to close out the Cavaliers, who were a really good team? What? Like that without De'Aaron Fox? I really felt it was remarkable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And you're right, Brendan, you nailed it. You kind of stole the thunder there a little bit. I said, hey, Mike, I was thinking to myself, Mike Brown, if you were looking for that ugly win, this is it. And it was a masterpiece. It really was. The way you finished was an absolute masterpiece. And it should give them just an abundant amount of confidence as this road trip continues. And we've talked about how much like these little defensive glimpses from this team have been there. Even when they've looked really bad, like you could see moments where they're like the defense is poking through. And then in the last podcast, we're talking about during a stretch of 3 to 4 games where defense is really prominent among this team. That even in the Milwaukee game, which wasn't great, that's a team I just feel like could probably beat the Kings 9 out of 10 times, maybe 8 out of 10 times. And they competed their ass off in that game. It wasn't a great game. But if you couple that with what you saw against Cleveland, defense is starting to, dare I say, become a little bit of a calling card for some of these players and some of these groups. And I know it's still a small sample size, but it's something where all of a sudden they've taken shape, and really it dates back to, I think, the Phoenix game where I just felt like the defense was atrocious in that game. And then you propel that forward the very next game against Indiana, and all of a sudden you're seeing it. And they haven't let go of the rope, as James likes to say, the Dave Yeager expression, when it comes to the defensive end. And I think it really kind of culminated to that moment last night against the Cavaliers, where that 19-0 run to close out. Again, Domantas Sabonis was sensational. Malik Monk for his for so many of the things that he was struggling with on the offensive end was such a spark plug. And they've got guys that are really buying in on that end. And I think I was curious to see how that would drop with De'Aaron Fox having a day off, because of the fact De'Aaron, even for his struggles on the offensive end at times, has really kind of brought it defensively during this stretch. So it didn't really impact them too heavily on that end. And I just think like they're peaking at the right time defensively, and I'm starting to buy into it.
Yeah, I'm starting to buy in as well. And, I'll point this out too. This is the second time in the last 3 games where Mike Brown has called it an ugly win. He felt the same way against the Chicago Bulls. And you remember that game is where they gave up 41 points to Zach LaVine. But then late in the game, he couldn't buy a bucket. They clamped on him and figure out ways to slow him down and stop him when it mattered. And that's what this kind of felt like. When it mattered, they were the better team. They were the team that was able to control the tempo of the game, able to control the defensive glass, able to control so many aspects of the game that actually matter when it comes to winning. And I'll point out, Cleveland was missing Donovan Mitchell, which of course is huge. But, Donovan Mitchell wasn't there last year, and it's pretty much the same team that was pretty solid last year as well without Donovan Mitchell. And I just think that the way that they were able to close, the way that they were able to stay together despite some bumps and bruises. Kevin Huerter went out with a shoulder injury, which that looked a little scary. The replay of it looked like he might have even popped his shoulder out for a second. Came back in and was excellent. I thought the way Keegan Murray started that game, hitting to 5 threes in the first quarter, 4 threes in the first quarter, and then got in foul trouble. But he ends up hitting 6 threes for 18 points. And the other thing I'll point out too is Harrison Barnes is well, first of all, Brennan owes him a huge apology.
Yep. So you're sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but what Harrison Barnes has been able to do, not just over the last couple of games, but over the last 12, is really, really spectacular. So he's a guy that, again, I don't think we knew what we were going to get from Harrison Barnes this season early in the year when he started to really hit the skids. But over his last 12 games, he's averaging 16.7 points, 5.1 rebounds. He's shooting 57% from the field, 40% from three, and 83.8% from the line. He's getting to the free throw line 6.2 times per game. And to me, he's been that guy that can sense when the team needs him to go get physical and get to the line and slow the game down, so Mike Brown doesn't have to call a timeout every 45 seconds. And he's been almost like a life preserver for this team. And I didn't know what we were going to get throughout this season with Barnes, but all of a sudden he looks like a player who, dare I say, is playing for a contract. And that's exactly what he is. But early in the season, it didn't feel like he was a player who was trying to prime himself for a huge payday in free agency.
Apology is more than due. I am no longer worried if he is potentially washed. I think Harrison Barnes has definitely shut me up there, and I'm glad to see it. I think the free throws you pointed out feel like one of the biggest things. Maybe that's just specifically coming off that Cleveland game, but I think typically he's been pretty good there, and I feel like that's a general gauge that you can look at the box score and try to get a feel for how aggressive he was in games. And I feel like that's the big difference for some of these big nights for him, and then others where he's maybe a little bit more quiet. And I feel like he's done a good job in being aggressive recently. Getting to the line's important. He's been a solid rebounder for them as well. And defensively, he's still the guy getting the tough matchups. If I'm remembering right, he's the one that's getting placed on Giannis when they're playing Milwaukee, and doing okay on that end. So I think HB's kind of been everything that you could want recently. Maybe it's an aspect of just getting more comfortable with this system. I probably just overreacted to a small sample at the beginning of the year.
No.
Me? In the Tuesday overreactions segment, I overreacted?
Overreaction.
Oh, crazy. It's almost like that's what that segment's for, but
The saving grace was that you asked it with a question mark.
Yeah.
Like
if we were to replay it,
he might be. And I said I was not really worried about his offense. It's his defense. Like, offense will come around. Whatever. I'm not going to defend myself. I was wrong. I shouldn't have said the W word.
I think you should bring him a fruit basket when they return from the road trip. That would be that'd be a good way to say I'm sorry.
How about a hug?
Well, I don't think Harrison wants a hug from Brenden.
I don't think he does. Yeah, I don't think he does. Sean, what do you make of the sort of revitalization of Harrison Barnes here? Because again, he just looked so awkward the first 2 weeks of the season, and the shooting percentages, the 3-point percentage was low. He couldn't even hit his free throws. Remember, he was shooting 50% from the free throw line. Everything looked off, and then it's like a magic switch went off. And again, not to discredit Harrison, he's put in the work to get better and to figure out how he fits, but it really does feel like all of a sudden he's become, maybe the Kings' third, fourth, fifth best player, where that's kind of where we thought he would be early in the season. Now he's kind of going back to what we thought he would be.
Yeah, there might have been some confusion there and not real clarity about your role, and maybe in him thinking that for a guy who, I'm always on to shoot more, he looks around and he's like, I've got a lot of shooters around me. Maybe that's not the role I need to play anymore. And it's like, no, you need to still be that guy. I don't know. I mean, he'll never really tell you what he's thinking, and all his teammates want him to shoot. they want him to be a force on the offensive end because he is a bucket. The guy can get it done. He can even ISO. He gets to the free throw line. It's like I don't know. It was just wonky for him, and I think someone got in his ear and has really kind of applied the pressure to really enforce, like, hey, when you do this, we do this. The whole when you score, we win. So they're in a nice rhythm right now, and I think it's great. I also remember how Harrison started last year, and it was fantastic, and then it eased up. And I felt there was a correlation to the easing up of him being aggressive on the offensive end and them losing games last year. So I hope that's not the case here. It's not something I want to say that all things are fixed in that department, but certainly I think there's a correlation to their success and to the way he's playing. But they've also shown the ability to be able to win without him, and that's what I think is really encouraging about this Kings team so far through this many games, is that they don't need it sounds contradictory because, yes, you do need Harrison Barnes to play well to really have the success, and you have the stats to back that up. You know what your record is when he's scoring upwards of 12 to 13 points a game. But my point is that you seem to be able to sustain success when you don't have a guy from one night to the other, because it is always somebody new, and they do have so much quality depth on this team. So that's the probably the biggest difference of anything from one year to the next when it comes to this Kings team. And you're seeing it night in, night out. It's always somebody new, and you don't really have to have these performances that are just these 30 point performances to carry you to a win. It's a collective team effort. You've got 7 guys usually in double figures every single night, and you can really hang your hat on that. And now when the defense is kind of creeping its way into the conversation as well, this team is really kind of making people eat crow, and I'd probably be one of them, because right now I know they look like they are a basketball team that has their shit figured out, and they're going to contend. They're going to be a team that's going to likely give teams fits in the West, and it just depends on how the West kind of shapes out. But through 25 games, I mean, here you are sitting in 5th place in the West. You've got a 500 record on the road. I know things are early, but I think this team is a team that is playing and showing you their hand in a way. I think this is who they are. I think they're going to be a team that's going to be in the conversation for sure.
Sean is just fighting so hard to not make the proclamation that
what do you mean
Brenden made last week, earlier in the week, that this is
that they're good. Yeah, it's a good team. Sure.
I was just waiting for the word should. I thought you were dancing around it.
No, because you don't. There's no should.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to next season, and we might have some shoulds along the way, but certainly not right now.
Yeah, and like I pointed out after the game last night that the Kings, this seems like a really small thing, but with that win, the Kings guaranteed that they'll come back from this road trip at 500. And if you're looking at this road trip early in the season, and you could look at it and go, okay, this could be an 0-6 stretch without any question. It could still be 1-5. Like, that possibility is still there. But even if they go 1-5 on the trip now, they would come back at 14-14, and they would be okay. Like, they get home. They've got some winnable games at home. They've got a huge crowd behind them, and a bunch of sellouts coming. I guarantee you, a bunch of sellouts coming in December around the holidays. They play 11 of their 13 next games at Golden 1 after this trip. And look, it's still going to be difficult to go into Madison Square Garden and somehow beat the Knicks. It's going to be hard to go to Toronto on the second night of a back-to-back, or Philadelphia and then Toronto on the second night of a back-to-back. And even finishing in Detroit, that's, the final game in a 6-game road trip. You're road weary at that point, and it's right around the holidays. And getting that win is going to be as difficult as any of these wins. So, my point, though, is that they're going to be okay. Even if they drop 4 straight here, they'll still be okay. They'll get home, they'll be okay, and they'll bounce back. And that's what I'm seeing from this team. They're resilient. The team this is second game this season that they had to play without De'Aaron Fox. I haven't really touched base a bunch to see what they're thinking here and how long he could potentially be out. But there is a possibility that he misses 2, 3, 4 games here because it's a foot injury, and of course he's such a fast player with the quick twitch stuff, and like having a bum wheel is just not good for the style of play that he likes to play. And so, what do you guys think? How is this going to go without De'Aaron Fox if he's not able to go? When they suit up on Sunday.
I think it's kind of to Sean's point earlier that obviously they're a better team with De'Aaron out there, but like you can have somebody have an off night, or for example, somebody be off night, no pun intended, by the way, but you could have somebody be out and there's other guys that are able to pick up the slack, So I think that coach said pregame something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, but sometimes you got to protect players from themselves because of course they're competitive and they want to be out there. And it seems like that's kind of what's going on here because De'Aaron, like, obviously just didn't quite look right. It was almost like the consistency of his aggression, I feel like, on the offensive end is kind of where it stood out to me. I think he was still a positive impact while he was out there. He was doing well on the defensive end and everything. But I think it's smart to try and manage it now so it doesn't become something worse or last even longer than it needs to, So I think that it makes sense to sit him out here, and it definitely helps that the day they do, they are able to go and prove that they can get it done without him as well. So I think it's smart. It doesn't sound like it's something that would be all too long, but never really know. So we'll see. But I like that he came out and said that. Clearly something had been bothering him, and he didn't really seem to want to say anything about it. So I like that he came out and people can get an understanding of kind of what's going on there. And I think he could, if it took the rest of this road trip, give him the rest of this road trip to fully recover.
Yeah, Sean, he said he heard it all the way back at the Orlando game, which is like November 5th. So, I mean, I think that's I started to notice him looking beat up in the Atlanta game, and that's kind of where his points started to drop off. He had the 2 big games against Detroit and Memphis, and then he struggled, I don't know, the next 7. Yeah, just what are your thoughts? And like, again, a foot injury, if it was the Orlando game, I mean, it's been going we're like touching 6 weeks at this point, and that's not good either.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's also been kind of beat up beyond that. I think you mentioned the Atlanta game, and I think that there was a game even before that where I was noticing him wincing a lot. And it didn't appear to be a lower body injury at that point. So I don't know. He it hasn't cost him any game, like up until now. He's wanted to play through it, and I think it was really that Milwaukee game that you really kind of saw him where it was not just noticeable, because it's been noticeable, but it was like really impacting his game more so than just casually. Like we've seen him have some rough games, but still be very impactful and still put up numbers, and still kind of, for the most part, keep his foot on the pedal. And like we were talking about a minute ago, the defense has been there. So I think it's a discomfort and it's a pain management, which is probably the toughest part about it. So yeah, as to Brendan's point, if it costs him a few games, you have built the equity, as James mentioned, and we talked about it last podcast, that if you were to go 1-5 on this trip, you're a 500 basketball team. Well, they've at least secured that. So with a few back-to-backs, or with a back-to-back kind of coming up, be interesting to see how it responds. He's had a few days off now with the day off on Saturday. So this will be something that is worth monitoring. But my hope is that it doesn't cost him too many games, because even if he's not 100%, I feel like they still need him out there, and they're able to kind of have moments where they don't need him. And like obviously the Cleveland game was one of them. They know what it's like to play without him, but I don't think you can sustain much success without him. So I'm hoping this isn't going to be something that lingers to an eventual 2-week injury or anything like that. That's pure speculation, but I don't think it's going to be anything too serious. And I think if it does come down to pain management, it might be something where, maybe a back-to-back is impacted, or if you have a 3-game in 4 nights coming up, maybe he sits one of those games as well. So if there's day off in between, and with the rest and recovery and the treatment that you get from day in and day out, hopefully it can become just manageable to where you can sustain a somewhat manageable schedule until things heal, or you get a more than a few days off, kind of back to back, to where you can really rest this thing.
Yeah, I remember watching him come in the locker room. I think it was the Phoenix game after they had that little 3-game road trip, and he was noticeably limping. He was in pain then, and so like I know it's been there. It's just, how much are you hurt or are you injured? And I know he's a guy who, again, he heals up fast. He gets a reputation sometimes as someone who misses a bunch of games. But I think even the last couple of seasons, a lot of it was like you miss a game, you miss like 5 games because of COVID. I think 2 seasons in a row you have those issues. Or he broke his hand. He broke a bone in his hand and missed the final handful of games. And I think the Kings have also, like over the last couple of years, if you're not going to be in it, you might as well shut him down. And so he does miss games, but I don't feel like a lot of it is on him. Like the major ankle sprain that he had a couple of years ago, that's one thing. And those are things that come back to bite you, like that. There could be lingering things from that still hanging out in his ankle, his foot area. So anyway, I think he'll be okay. And the Kings need him on the court, just because, it makes life easier for everyone else. That's what, if Davion Mitchell has to go out there and he's defended by the toughest cover, the toughest defender on the opposition on the perimeter, that's not good for the Kings. Like, that's where Fox really comes in handy. He takes the toughest cover every single time he steps on the court. And that means that Kevin Huerter doesn't have nearly the same defender on him, and that Davion or Malik Monk or whoever's on the court with him, they get a lesser defender when he's on the court. And the Kings definitely need him. I think it played into their hands that, Donovan Mitchell missed a game. If Donovan Mitchell doesn't miss that game, I don't think the Kings win that game. And that's because you need all of your horses going. And if you're missing your biggest one, then you're going to have trouble. And that kind of brings us to like Domantas Sabonis. I don't know how many times we can talk about him in just such glowing regard, but what he's been able to do here in Sacramento, how he's become a better defender, how all of a sudden he's shooting 37.9% from 3, how he just literally is like teetering on a triple-double almost every single game. He is so incredibly impactful to the Kings. And again, we talk about who's the most important player, and we usually say Monk, or sometimes we say Fox, but I think Sabonis is the guy that really does make everything work. Just another big game against the Cavs. What are you guys' thoughts?
It's hilarious that I can look at a 18, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks stat line and feel like it almost still somehow doesn't tell the full story. Like, he is so good at unlocking his teammates. Like, I think it's the little things like his screens. I feel like he's right up there with the best in the league at setting these screens and those little drop-off passes and kind of readjusting the angle of them. Like, he's phenomenal. If he's hitting a jumper at all, like, I don't want him taking a lot of threes, and he's not taking too many or anything like that. But if that's there, like, this offense is already going crazy, and that's just going to take it to another level. But even without that, he's phenomenal around the rim. If there was anything to nitpick, he could knock down more than 8 of the 14 free throws, but I'm certainly not complaining with the performance that we got from him yesterday. He's been amazing. And defensively, there's those 2 blocks, and I think they happen at the same, not long after one another in that either late third or fourth quarter. And he's been so good at deterring shots. He doesn't quite have the length to get a hand on the ball all too often, but I think he's been in the right position, hasn't dealt with the same foul trouble. So for him to be a positive impact on the defensive end with everything that he already provides offensively, like, there's guys that maybe you could argue De'Aaron's the better player, but like, I think Sabonis is far and away the most irreplaceable player on this team because his skill set is just so unique. And I think, like I said, he's just so good at unlocking all of his teammates and making everyone better. Like, there's a reason why it's Huerter and Sabonis. That 2-man game is so good. Malik and Sabonis' 2-man game is so good. Same with De'Aaron. Like, the common trend here is just Sabonis is really damn good and great at enabling his teammates. And I think we see that night in and night out. And yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good things. He's been phenomenal.
That pass that behind the back to Harrison Barnes for that dunk late in that game was pretty magnificent. I mean, yeah, Brenden said it there. I mean, it's all good, and just the joy that he brings to the basketball court. I remember, I've watched him a lot throughout the years. I mean, obviously he's an all-star player, but the thing that instantly picked up this team was just count the amount of high fives he gets during a game. Like his first game here in Sacramento, he made sure that everyone was engaged, everyone's touching his five, like give him a high five. Like he puts his, like he's making sure that there's a togetherness with the team, and it trickles down to every facet of the game. That's just the type of basketball player he is. It's what his his whole background is, and everything he's learned from his father and from the stops that he's made in his career. It's pretty infectious play, and it trickles down to everybody, as Brenden mentioned. It makes everyone better. It picks everyone up. But and to see him so happy after getting that Defensive Player of the Year or Game award that Mike Brown introduced to the locker room last night, as well with a ton of like laser pens, which was everyone's lighting their own beam with their laser pens. That was kind of fun. To see him literally have that joy among his teammates was really, really cool. I am wondering if someone's going to require him to wear a face mask at some point during the course of the season, because he's getting popped a lot. But yeah, man, just everything's really working really well with him, and it starts with him. You can see what happened last year, and it's really spreading throughout the team, and you surround him with the right pieces. This is kind of what you're getting from it, and people can really kind of see the cake being made. Like it's starting to rise a little bit, and it's not quite done, but it's certainly getting there.
Yeah, you brought up something which I think will make the business of basketball. When it comes to this team, I don't know what it is, but like this whole Defensive Player of the Game, like amulet thing. I don't even know what that is.
Amulet.
I certainly think you can't get through like airport security with it. I'm
sure
not
you
sure.
can.
I'm not sure what it is. Like I'm surprised it doesn't spin or something, like, or it doesn't have a clock attached to the middle of it. Like it's this gigantic piece of jewelry that what did Mike Brown say, that Vivek's got billions and we're just trying to spend some of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it brings us to a bigger question about this team. And is this the most likable Kings team since like the early 2000s? Like, I don't know what it is, but it feels like they're branding themselves almost on a nightly basis, whether it's the beam, whether it's headband Huerter, whether it's the Band-Aids on Monk's face. Now we have this Defensive Player of the Game. Like, are they only going to pull that out during like wins, or is it going to be like the beam? I don't know, but like it feels like this team all of a sudden is very likable and very marketable, and it has like its own, it's almost like Spaceballs, the movie, like they have Spaceballs, the gift shop. Like that's what it feels like. This team is all of a sudden like they're becoming something that you can actually go out and sell if you're the Sacramento Kings.
You're calling the Kings a gimmicky team. Like they have all these little things around them that you're right. I don't know if it's the most fun necessarily, but it's much needed. If anything, it's refreshing, and I think that the fact that they can do this and it also correlates to wins. I mean that's a big part of it. I don't know that if they were out there and they were 20-5 right now, I think people would be having just as much fun with this team as they are right now with all these little gimmicky things around them. To me, it's always it's always cute while it's working, but then like what happens if it starts to wane a little bit, or does the messaging get a little bit tiring? And if you're with the amulet, as you call it, this Legend of Zelda kind of like thing, like if you're Davion Mitchell, how do you not go, hey, you can just go ahead and throw that in my locker and just keep it right there because I'm gonna be wearing that bitch a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, but there are other guys that step up on this team and come up with big plays. We've talked about it all year long, whether it's KZ, whether it's Trey Lyles, whatever it might be. Like there are plenty of opportunities for guys to step up and be good defensively and make a difference.
I just think there's so much value in enjoying your teammates and just having this sense of camaraderie and chemistry, like off the court as well. And I think anybody can relate to it. Like if you played sports in any way, or even just any job, like you're going to, I think, do better at your job if you enjoy doing it. And I think that we're seeing like a night and day difference compared to these last couple years prior, where there was nights it kind of felt like just a bunch of guys going out there and playing basketball together rather than like a team, if that makes sense. And I think you feel the chemistry here. I like all the little gimmicky things. I think since there's a new one every once in a while, it's not necessarily getting old. So we'll see how long this amulet sticks around for. But I like it. I think that there's just so much value in enjoying your team. And I think that's a product of Sabonis, as Sean pointed out, Malik, that we've talked about, obviously has that personality that's infectious and spreads. And there's a handful of other personalities on the team as well. And Mike Brown, obviously, being a big one. But I think it's just them putting a clear emphasis on camaraderie and team chemistry. And I think that helps on the court just as much as off.
Well, and it works too, because James, I mean, think about it. We've seen it in baseball where guys are putting necklaces on and after hitting home runs in the dugout, and you get, wrestling championship belts on football players like the 49ers, with George Kittle and Ross Dwelly and a lot of the guys over there that love wrestling. I mean, these things are little common threads that can be little tokens that bring everyone together and have something stupid and cheap to rally around. But because it's funny, it's like you got all these millionaires who are just rallying around this like little toy, if you will, that you'd find in a kids aisle at Target, perhaps. But it works, man. There's no explanation for it. I mean, think about going back to the Giants when they were the dynasty, winning World Series and stuff like disgusting thongs with Aubrey Huff. There's always something that a team can just use to galvanize them, to find joy, be it even making the rookies dress up or popcorning someone's car. It's like all these little things, they matter. They really do. And again, there's really no analytic for chemistry, but these are things that, you always hope happen in a fun, organic way that'll could bring guys together. And the moment it's forced upon or it doesn't land right, then hopefully it's squashed. But, yeah, we haven't seen stuff like this since really the Scores in Sacramento, and we all know what that was like. So this is kind of that version of it.
Yeah, and you brought
thong?
up thong.
Yeah, there was a rally thong that Aubrey Huff, that disgusting human being.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to know. I don't even.
It was bad.
But also, you bring up the Giants, and like I've been clear, like I hate the Giants. I always have.
Watch your tone.
It is what it is. It's okay. You can hate the A's. You can hate other teams. Like
I like the A's.
I don't care. But like
I hate the Dodgers.
I don't like the Giants. I've never liked the Giants. But there's something that they did during their great years where they're winning, World Series every other year, like the Lincecum mullet, the panda hat, like all of these things were such great marketing tools to sell your team to your fan base. And that's what I see right now. Like if you guys haven't seen Dave Lack on Twitter, shout out to Dave Lack. He's literally like 3D printed Golden One Center and then added a beam that comes out so he can light the beam at his house. Like I think we're seeing these things that are like they're unique and they're gimmicky for sure, but they're also fun and they're adding to like who and what this team is this year. And I mean, it's just it is adding an element that we just aren't used to seeing in SAC. Where again, I think there are going to be a lot of people out there, a lot of little kids out there this Christmas. They get De'Aaron Fox jerseys or Domantas Sabonis jerseys. Where in past years, that just wasn't the case. I think we're seeing this team find a way to connect to the fan base, which is good. We skipped over when we were talking about the actual game action and all that stuff. I want to mention that Keegan Murray looks like Keegan Murray again. Like the snozberries taste like snozberries, but like he all of a sudden looks like himself. And you're like, hey, look, that's why they drafted him. That's what he can bring to the table. And Like, I don't want to skip over him because I think he's done a really nice job of battling through an early season sort of defining moment for him and coming out the other side, and all of a sudden he looks like, again, the joy of basketball is back, and he's not like frustrated or confused or lost. And so I want to make sure I mention that. And also, I'm hard on Davion Mitchell sometimes, but right now, like, the Kings need Davion Mitchell so much, and he's been such a difference maker on the defensive end over the last, like, maybe 2 weeks, where he's sort of settling in, sort of finding his niche with this team. Again, when De'Aaron Fox is out, he needs to do more than like 3 of 5 from the field or whatever it was. He needs to find ways to be more impactful on the offensive end. But overall, like, his defensive effort, whether it's against, Garland, or when they brought him in to slow Kobe White, or Zach LaVine, or DeMar DeRozan, or Tyrese Halliburton, whatever it is, like, I think he's answered the call, like, really, really well over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Keegan for sure. I definitely wanted to make sure he got acknowledged for the same reasons as you. Like, I think he's playing great. That 20-0 run was obviously big, and he was part of that. He hasn't really been part of the closing lineup recently for them. It's been Malik Monk, and instead they went with Keegan Murray in that game. And the 4 for 4 from 3 in that first quarter, like, seeing him get that third foul with somewhere around 10 minutes left in the second quarter, it was so sad because he was just totally rolling. He was hitting everything, really quick trigger, like barely any space coming off some DHOs with Sabonis. Like, that is the stuff that we saw from Murray at the beginning of the year in Summer League, where it's like had me really questioning, what is this guy's ceiling? Like, I think he's going to be really good in this league. And I've noticed recently, like, just occasionally you see some body language stuff, which I feel like is outlier for Keegan, where he's just looked down. And you actually saw it in that Cleveland game too. He was hitting his threes, and that looked like he was enjoying himself there, obviously. But when he got that third, or maybe it was the fourth foul, he was kind of on the floor and he threw his hands up. Like, so I think having a night like he did yesterday, minus the foul trouble, has just got to feel so good, because he's looked frustrated. I would imagine that it's been frustrating, that he's been struggling a bit, and just how much is being talked about. Like, he's a rookie. HB kind of pitched it as he doesn't even think it's rookie stuff. It's just people go through ups and downs as any player. And last 5 games for Keegan, 16.2 points on 53% from the field, 47% from 3 on just over 7 attempts a game. Like, I think he's been what you would hope for on the offensive end. And it's just got to feel relieving to finally have some of these good games, because he's been struggling. And like I said, I felt like you could see it. And that was starting to just be weird, because it's not typical of Keegan, I feel like.
The other thing I'd really add is just, I like the fact, I'm always so big and complimentary of his composure, because he seems so wise beyond his years. And he may have worn some stuff a little bit there, but Cleveland was running everything at him. And even when, they were kind of picking on him, and it was working. But I also feel like he got a better handle on it as the game continued, particularly in that fourth quarter. I thought he responded really well. But I felt like he handled that moment clearly, knowing that it's like, well, I've got a target on my back here on the defensive end. They're coming right at me. And I feel like he handled it pretty well. And I think Mike Brown recognized some things, pulled him out for a moment, and then got him right back in there. And I thought that, that was... He probably had Doug Christie in his ear the entire time on the bench, just talking about, recognizing what they were doing and how to respond when he get back out on the floor. So, yeah, I'm not worried about Keegan Murray. This rookie is going to be a very talented one. And again, it's like getting back to what he did in Summer League. It's like, yeah, he was doing against guys that were borderline NBA players. He will be an NBA player. He is obviously right now, but he will be a guy who's going to have a bright future, and he's going up against some really crafty veterans at the moment. So scouting reports are out. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, and I like the fact that it seems like you've kind of gone around that mountain, some of those hurdles that might have been in your way and may have been a little bit of a stumbling block. You've recognized them, you know how to correct them, and I think his teammates are doing a really good job of keeping him engaged as well. So they're always trying to keep things loose with him and not have things kind of snowball or compact on him, and I think it's been a little bit of an adventure, but he's such a positive on the floor every single time, even when he has some defensive lapses. I mean, getting back out there and responding on the right way on the offensive end. You see Sabonis constantly in his ear. These are all good things. I don't think anyone's really worried about him. I think it is a big credit to the work ethic that he has, that he's been able to kind of overcome some of these things so early on.
Yeah, okay, so I want to ask one question before we get out of here. The Kings right now, like if the season were to end today, they'd probably be around like the 18th pick in the draft, somewhere around there. Like,
are we doing this?
I'm just wondering, would you guys go dual Murrays if somehow Chris falls to the Kings' range and like you have an opportunity? Would you double down on Murray's and have Chris and Keegan side by side? Just wondering.
That's
just
such
wondering.
a dumb question, James.
Wow.
It's December 10th. How dare you?
I'm just wondering. He's scheduled to go.
How much college basketball have you watched already?
I haven't watched a ton, but I have watched a little bit here and there of him.
Yeah.
And he's been really, really, really good. But he's scheduled to go anywhere between I'd say 12 and 24 in the draft, in that range. I don't know. I think it'd be intriguing at least to go.
He was the only game I saw of him in its entirety was the Duke 74-62 victory just this past week, and he wasn't very good, but he played the entire game, which was great. But no, he wasn't very good in that game.
I have not seen enough of him this year, and certainly haven't seen enough of the rest of the guys, rest of potential prospects, but I've heard good things, and just chuckled when I just went to type Tankathon into my browser and it didn't autofill. And we've come a long way. We've come a long
way, boy. We've come a long way. That's funny. Right now, he's averaging 19.4 points, 10.1 rebounds, 0.9 blocks, 1.8 assists. He's shooting 37.8% from three and 50% from the field. Yeah, he's been pretty good.
And apparently he's this more outgoing personality. And
yeah,
that's weird to me.
Why is that weird? You should expect that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, dude,
because Keegan, you got to pull it out of him, man. It's tough.
I have two boys, and my oldest is super quiet. He's an introvert.
Yeah.
And my youngest is out in the rain getting donations for a soccer team. And he'll walk up to anyone at any time, and he doesn't care. Yeah, I've got an extrovert and an introvert, and so it doesn't matter. I think, isn't Chris a minute or two older? I think he is. But either way, I mean, it doesn't matter. Nature versus nurture, it's just personality, and so I think it's. Either way, I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun to have both Murrays on the one team. We've seen it with whatchamacallit, the Morris twins, right?
Yeah.
The Morai?
Yeah, the Morai. They used to share a bank account and everything. I don't know if they still do that stuff.
Same tattoos and everything.
Yeah.
And it's not just one or two.
Yeah, I think there was one game that was questionable whether a different Murray showed up for
this was
a game.
A Washington playoff series, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a questionable game. Yeah. And then, the NBA, they put up Chris's picture when Keegan was drafted on accident. So, yeah, good stuff. Okay.
Do you think how Keegan's, last thing on this real quick, do you think how Keegan's rookie year goes affects Chris's draft stock at all?
No.
I
do
mean,
you?
It's an interesting
I don't think so,
question.
But I don't know.
It's funny, while they're very different personality-wise, they're very similar on the court. The way they move, the way, everything is very similar.
Do I mean, if I was just giving it a quick glance over, it just seems to me that maybe Chris has, obviously Keegan is so gifted offensively, in my opinion. I think he's probably going to be the better offensive player, but Chris definitely seems to be the better rebounder. Do you get that impression?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I mean, right now he's averaging 10 a game, which is impressive.
Right.
But But that could be some of the players they're playing with as well versus where they were last year.
Right.
Yeah. So and if you remember, I mean, like Chris played a lot last year as well. He just wasn't in a starring role, but Keegan averaged 8 a game. So I mean, if his brother was there and actually getting rebounds and stuff, you never know. But the NBA is so different because you remember, is it Cody and Caleb Martin?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wasn't the better offensive player in the pros was like the jack of all trades at UNR, and the other one averaged 20 a game and isn't nearly the same score. And why I'm not remembering which is which was so good at the college level, they switched roles when they got to the pros because the game is different, and they both are high basketball IQ, like smart players who can do multifaceted things. But one was like a really, really good scorer in college, and it didn't translate at all.
Well, and then you can become kind of products of your environment too, like depending upon the system that you go to, the coaching staff, and who's ahead of you, and situations can be completely different. But then again, the cream usually does rise to the top. So it just depends on how the evolution of your game and what's asked of you from different roles and from different teams.
Yeah. It's definitely different. Okay, let's finish up with our standard final thoughts, because I know I've got one and I know Sean's going to have one. Brenden, do you have any final thoughts? Because usually you go, no, not really. But go ahead.
Yeah, usually I say no, not really, and then still have a final thought. So I guess we'll go with that. I am about to be finishing up a piece on Chima Monecki, and I think his year has been kind of interesting. So stay on the lookout for that. And he's always great to interact with, and just somebody that you can't help but kind of root for. So guess that's all I got. Should be finishing that one up today.
Sean?
Oh, final thoughts. Yeah, I mean, I guess just my morning's been all Troy Taylor, so I guess congratulations to Troy Taylor. He's going to leave the Hornets and head to Stanford, kind of the worst kept secret in the world. I mean, you got when you're at Sac State and you can, jump to Stanford, not only do you do that, the program should say, no, you leave because it makes us look better. I mean, it just does. As much of an absence as it will be, losing a guy who was, among the winningest coach in terms of winning percentage, and he did it in 3 seasons, even though he was here for 4 years. That's going to elevate your program to show that you had a coach that was able to use you as a stepping stone to get to Stanford. So he left the program much better than when he got it at Sac State, and to go from being an offensive coordinator at Utah to even before that being at Folsom High School and winning state championships alongside Chris Richardson was pretty impressive. So good for them, and we'll look forward to seeing who Sac State swoops up.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was like, it wasn't a great kept secret. It seemed like that was going to happen as soon as the game was over. I actually watched the fourth quarter of their game last night. That was nuts. That was absolutely crazy. Like,
he should have called timeout. But
yeah, he should have called timeout. Yeah, I also wanted to know if Tony Harvey was going to be there and ask about defense, because no defense was played in that game at all. At all. Like, that was like wide open running up. And I mean, what was it? 60, 65,
66, 63.
66, 63.
What?
No overtime. That was all regulation.
Yeah. Wild back and forth.
I think he had like 50 points combined in the fourth quarter alone.
Yeah, it was just all like, you hand the ball off, the guy goes up the middle for a touchdown. 3 plays later, the other team is going back and scoring on the other end. It was wild.
Lindsey Scott, by the way, that Incarnate Word quarterback, Lindsey Scott, that dude is sick. Just incredible. Yeah,
he's good. Yeah, it's a bummer to see Sac State lose, even though I am a Davis guy. Like, I don't really care. I'm not going to do stingers up, but I don't really care.
Stupid.
Yeah.
I don't like you can say stingers up. I actually like it, but it's just like doing this. Like, come on, man. I like Austin Powers kind of thing. I don't get it.
It is kind of weird. Okay, and then like, I've been enthralled by the World Cup. Me and my son, we get up and watch World Cup nonstop. I I don't know what exactly happened there, but just thoughts and prayers are with Grant Wall's family. And I hope that this doesn't become an international incident, and that everything is explained. But just, absolutely tragic. Soccer lost an absolute bright, like promoter of the game, and somebody who's done nothing but good work covering the World Cup and covering soccer for a long time. Just absolutely tragic. Age 48, for the world of soccer to lose Grant Wall, and like we have no idea what happened there, but it's not a good situation, and like again, really heart goes out to his family. Just absolutely tragic. Hopefully we have some answers there sooner rather than later. But yeah, just a absolutely sad day for soccer. And let's see. Outside of that, do we have anything positive we can end on? Since I've got a negative note.
You brought it down.
I brought us down. Yeah. Maybe not.
It's almost Christmas.
It's almost Christmas.
Did you get your shopping done?
We're about 85%, I would say.
85.
We're about 85%. We haven't started wrapping yet, which means we're behind because usually by this point. But we're worried the Corgi will unwrap everything. So
I think you'd appreciate this, James. I remember when you got your PS5. I didn't know that fast forward 3 years later, PS5 would still be worth its weight in gold because of how hard it is to get. But I was like, should I get one? I don't really play video games as much as I used to. I don't know if I should do it. And I was like, maybe I'll do it. Every time I've tried to get one, I've struck out. So then all of a sudden, I was like, I'm going to pull the trigger. And some of my things I follow where if something drops, like sneakers, for example, I can pounce on it rather quickly. And they did it for PS5. And I was like, I'm going to get this. But there was a bundle, and it was $800, bro. I was like, should I do this? I don't know. So I held off. And I'm glad I did because my roommate just got a PS5. So by virtue of him having a PS5, I now have a PS5. And it arrived literally during this podcast. So I keep looking off to the side. Yeah.
I can see you smiling. I'm like, something.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the PS5 we got, I think we talked, well, maybe not. How long ago was that? Was it 3 years? Man,
I think so.
It wasn't last year. It was year before.
Yeah. So this might be
It was a Kings fan. I had put out in the universe that I needed a PS5, and a Kings fan said, "Hey, I got an extra," and I met him at the hotel, at the Sawyer Hotel. And
James bought stolen goods. Shit fell off a truck somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Well, no, it came with the receipt. I had the receipt and everything. Yeah, it was legit. It was still in the bag. Never been opened. He had bought two or something. He had got, like you, Sean, he had been stalking one of these things and was able to go and get it. So anyway, Kings fans came through for me.
Yeah, man.
All right.
We have a PS5 now. Goodbye, productivity.
Goodbye, yeah. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Again, we will have an announcement, hopefully Monday, with our guest for the happy hour, which is Thursday. Hopefully these fine gentlemen. Oh, there he is. His God of War.
I don't even know what the hell God of War is.
I haven't played it. But we've got the happy hour coming up on Thursday. Make sure to become a premium subscriber to the Kings Beat in order to get the invitation to said happy hour. They are spectacular. They are by far a unique and really cool experience, and the feedback from them has just been nothing but spectacular. So make sure to jump on board with the Kings Beat. Make sure, if you're still watching and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. That does us a solid favor when it comes to the algorithm that is YouTube. Outside of that, I think that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. So for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I am James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat.
Bye.